So yeah, I'm in Uruguay, and you were telling me that you worked in Buenos Aires.
Right, and we were gonna go. What's the beach town that a lot of people from Buenos Aires go in Uruguay? What's the name of that town?
Punta del Este.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We were gonna go one weekend, and something happened, and we didn't go. But I almost went.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there's this pretty kind of mysterious sculpture there, which is a hand that they say like it's the hand of a giant that's under the sand. So it's like giant fingers, just the tip of the five fingers. And a funny thing that's there. So you
Yeah, I was there in 2000. In 2000, it was a crazy time.
Oh yeah, you were lucky. The following year, everything went to
I was there right as it was going. Like it was like going to it, and then I remember we left right towards the end of the year, right before 9/11. We left, but I remember it was a mess. It was a mess.
Yeah, everything over there as well as in my country, everything was pretty strange and intense economically during those years.
Yeah, I remember. Wow, it
Yeah.
was so wild. To see like middle class people. I remember middle class people like asking me for money and stuff. It was really weird. It was just like everything just kind of broke because we had a company. They sent me down from this company, and there was just no way to make money. So I just had to sell everything, and and leave.
It wasn't the right time.
Yeah, but I had a great time. I loved it.
Yes.
Buenos Aires is it's a fascinating city. It's so big.
It's intense. Yeah. I'm not to such a large city because here in the capital, Montevideo, where I'm at, it's a pretty small place. It's around a million people. So it's not that big, but Buenos Aires has a lot of people and it's big. They sometimes compare it with New York, I think.
Yeah, it even seems bigger sometimes. And like the neighborhoods are so different. Each neighborhood had a real different flavor to it. It was a cool place because you could explore one area, then another. It was like you're going to a different city. It was really
fun. Very rich culture over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you must have lots of stories from your travels, I imagine.
No, a few, yeah. Yeah, I've lived in a lot of places, it's true.
And right now you're in Tunisia?
In Tunisia.
Well, that's cool. That must be interesting as well.
Yeah, it's great. Tunis is a beautiful city. It's very Mediterranean. So if you spend time in Spain or the south of France, Italy, Greece, it's kind of that similar kind of vibe. It's really nice.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I've never been to Africa, so that could be a nice place to one day visit.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a nice way to start, and you can kind of go, you could go west, you could go say to like Algeria, Morocco, or go sub-Saharan Africa. So whatever direction you wanted to go.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to explore there, as far as, for example, ancient cultures and megaliths and stuff like that, yeah?
All kinds. And the Phoenician culture. It's interesting, the Phoenician roots in Tunis, because they're kind of hidden. It's not something people are really very in touch with. But the Phoenician roots here are pretty powerful. I mean, this is Carthage. This is where Hannibal was and all that.
And how is it still relevant over there?
Yeah, it really isn't, because when Islam came in, it kind of buried it. And so it's not, I guess, like, for example, even if you go to Spain, like Cartagena, they're more interested in their sort of Phoenician roots. But here, people are not so, I guess they identify more as Arab, even though maybe technically they're not Arabs, they sort of identify more with the Arab world.
Yeah, so Phoenicians are like boats, right? They're seafaring people, right?
Some of the first money in the Mediterranean, the alphabet, the Semitic alphabet, the original Semitic alphabet was Phoenician. And then the Greeks took it. And then from the Greeks, the Romans took it. So really the origin of our alphabet comes from them. They controlled the Western Mediterranean.
Right. Pretty
much the whole area of the Western Mediterranean. And then finally they wound up fighting with the Romans, and the Romans won, and that was that.
Yeah, kaput, the end of it. That was a strange time. So tell me also, Robert, you're very deep into tarot, correct?
Yeah.
Tell me, how did you first come across it? How did your interest in it first come about?
Yeah, I wasn't like one of these kids who was always playing with the tarot. With me, I think it came really later. In my 20s, I started exploring sort of alternative spirituality, that sort of stuff. And I think I had a tarot deck. But what really got me into the tarot was I was writing a novel, and I had a general idea what the major arcana were. And I found an article, I wish I could remember who wrote it, where what this person said was the major arcana, it's not just a series of archetypes, there's actually a narrative path to it. So if you think of the fool, it's the fool's journey, and it's a journey from the magician all the way through to the world. And that fascinated me, and I said, why don't I use the major arcana for each chapter? That's kind of, to give a feel for the chapter. And then I started really getting into it. And it's one of those things that you begin to get into, and it's one of those rabbit holes that you keep going deeper and deeper. I'd always been very interested in Jung too, Carl Jung. I still am. Big influence on me.
Yeah, me too.
So when I got into understanding that these were really archetypes, to understand them, they're very powerful archetypes.
Yeah, they contain lots of meaning and symbology that's universal in a way.
Yeah, and I think we have to be careful sometimes, because some people like to make it a little too universal. They do have there's a concrete moment in history where they emerge. And it's important to understand them in that context. And then you can take them out. You know what I mean? Because sometimes people, the UFO tarot or whatever tarot, everyone's got their own tarot cards. And I tell them, I say, you don't make up your own zodiac, so you should be gentle with these archetypes. They're powerful.
Yeah, like each.
And the other thing that's I like, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say is, I like the idea that there's a bit of mystery of where they emerge, because we have a pretty clear idea where the tarot comes as a game. That's pretty clear. No, it comes from the Mamluks, and that game wound up in Europe. But the major arcana are just kind of popped into the game. Like in the 13th century, right around there, and they just kind of emerge into the game. But it's not really clear who put them in and why. And that kind of just the fact that mystery is there is nice.
Yeah, there's all these ideas of mystery schools and probably ancient wisdom continuing down the ages, and who knows, some people on the know might have decided to introduce that information to the common playing cards, for sure.
In my film, I insinuate, because I have absolutely zero evidence to support this. But sometimes you don't need evidence. If it works as a myth, sometimes we get caught up in the historical. If the myth works, there's probably some truth in it. But I would like to think that there is some Cathar influence into the tarot. So if you look at that period when the Albigensian Crusade in the 13th century, the 12th, 13th century, then the Templars get wiped out. And right after the major arcana emerge. So it would be nice to think that some of that Cathar knowledge, which is a Gnostic thought, got embedded in there. And it is true, and I insinuate this in the film, Gnosticism was very prominent in northern Italy. So there was definitely some remnants of it at that time. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Catharism.
And there are several, you could say, maybe the word is Catholic or kind of ecclesiastical symbologies in many of the cards, like the Pope.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely. And also not just the Pope. No, it's all there, kind of. The Tower. If you think of the tower as sort of the dark night of the soul. Huh? But it is interesting too, that if you think of the Catholicism as the overarching exoteric sort of view, the tarot is definitely the esoteric. And it's definitely there at that moment in history. The tarot emerges. You have the Kabbalah in Spain at the very same time emerging. Though I would say there really is the Kabbalistic influence on the tarot, I think, is almost zero. What happens is later on they see that the systems can fit, kind of. People merge them. But originally, I don't think there was much influence. But alchemy, it's another thing I try and do in the film is juxtapose some of those alchemic images and the tarot images, and some of them are very close.
Yeah.
So I would love to think that the person who came up with them was influenced strongly, at least by alchemy, and definitely astrology. But then remember, everybody was influenced by astrology. So it was a different worldview.
Yeah, and tarot and astrology up till today still influence so much of our.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So before the program, we've been having some conversations via email, and we were thinking that it could be a nice idea to explore and to ask the cards for some guidance or some insight into the strange times we're living with this supposed pandemic, with this lockdown. There's like so much perhaps misinformation, and there's also so many. I mean, I compare this time with, I remember speaking to somebody and comparing it with the time of 9/11, when it was like, at the start it was clearly a terrorist attack, and oh my God, what happened? And then slowly but surely it started unraveling that it wasn't exactly like the official narrative was saying. And that was a big time for people to start awakening spiritually, and even before that to start awakening to certain things in our society that aren't exactly right, and aren't quite as they could be in terms of being more humanitarian and all that. And I think this time is a kind of reflection of that.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. But more intense. This is a lot more intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like,
you seem a lot younger than I am. How old were you in 9/11?
I was maybe 14, 13, around that age.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It must have been different I can't imagine being 13 and seeing that. No? But yeah, this is a little bit more, it's a bit more powerful. I mean, economically, what's happening, I don't think people really get it. I don't think they understand the full impact that this is having. And they kind of think, well, everything will be okay. This is going to have enormous economic ramifications, especially like in the United States on small business.
Yeah, I think
small businesses are going to get wiped out. And who's going to come in and buy it? These big corporations are going to come in and buy all these small businesses. And, a lot of things are happening on a big level. So this is really a very powerful moment.
Yeah, super strange. I remember 9/11 was an event that definitely marked my generation, because I mean we all had heard when we were kids about, I don't know, JFK or perhaps even other terrorist bombings here or there, but we were so young before that it's like, I don't know what they're talking about really. But at that age, 13, 14, I was quite more conscious of, I was still a silly little kid, but I was conscious enough to like start looking into alternative explanations, and not out of an interest to demonstrate conspiracies or anything like that, but simply many other explanations made a lot of intuitive sense for me. So I started exploring, and eventually it's now probably, I mean, it's not ever probably going to be demonstrated beyond the shadow of a doubt, but it's pretty clear what happened, or at least part of what happened during that episode. And yeah, I'm pretty sure now what's happening now will still be explored by and researched by people for many years.
Oh yeah, yeah. But even as we speak, it's becoming clearer and clearer from even mainstream sources that the genetic code on this, there's a pretty good chance that it was created in a lab.
Mm.
And I work sometimes with labs. I do some translations for some pathology labs. So, I can talk to people who, and they were telling me, it's 50-50. So, I mean, it's almost, to the point where now, today, you could say that, yeah, it was made in a lab. Did it escape by accident? Who knows? But it's kind of, it's pretty powerful. It's interesting, your generation, I was just thinking, you were 14 or 15 when 9/11 happened. You were 22 when you had the financial crisis. And then you get this. It's a lot easier for you to sort of go into deconstruct mode. But I was older, so when 9/11 happened, it took me longer to get to where you got, because I had a lot of stuff already baked in,
I can imagine. I would talk to my parents or older people that I knew, and yeah, everybody was like, "Shut up with your crazy ideas. How are you gonna say something that governments are evil, or that governments could have anything to do with
Sure.
doing anything bad to people? That's impossible."
Yeah, yeah. You're almost lucky in a sense, because you were able at a young age to be able to sort of open up your mind a little bit.
Yeah, I was definitely born at a very interesting, like bridge, let's say, at a bridge
Mhm.
time in human history. Yeah, to have I grew up like being able to play outside with friends with no fear of anything strange. Then weird things started happening. The internet. I was like, I had like a taste of all of this change that's been going for the last, I don't know, 20-30 years. I mean, I remember having that phone that you had to go all the way around
Yeah,
the thing to call somebody, and you remembered everybody's phone number.
yeah,
I went from that to the magic, the magic thing in your pocket with all the answers.
yeah. And you know what? I've gone back to this one. Yeah, it's funny. I never forget when I lived in Buenos Aires around 2000. The big phone was the StarTalk. I don't know if you remember that. It was like and all the girls would walk around. I remember, and it was so funny. It was so
Yeah, I
funny.
remember my cousin's grandfather. He had a StarTAC that was like this small. I remember the numbers. It was ridiculous, but it was like everything had to be as small as possible. I swear, when you opened it, it was like almost the size of your palm. Almost. No, no, it was amazing. And
Yeah.
so maybe maybe we could talk about in regards to the tarot about the questions, because I know it's a very important aspect
Yeah.
of finding the most correct question, let's say, right?
And it's interesting. I'm really glad we're doing this, because I just published an article on the whole COVID-19 thing
I
from
saw
the
it on your
perspective
website.
of the film. I don't know if do you remember a film, A Clockwork Orange, in the
Yeah,
book?
yeah. I was just on your website and I saw the article. Haven't read it,
Oh,
but I got
the
the
gist of it.
the glimpse of what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting, because I think we're kind of in between that world of sort of Alex and the scientists kind of, put the drops in his eye. We're sort of in that weird kind of a place. And it's almost like, which world is going to emerge out of this? Do we win, or do we kind of submit? Yeah.
Yeah. Recently, I've been very much into exploring those ideas. I'm not convinced by the names very much, but the ideas of manifesting reality and like
Mhm.
trying to um, to influence your subconscious mind and the power of the subconscious mind. And I'm very, I'm leaning towards the idea that every possibility happens, and the minds and the awarenesses that are ready for one possibility or for another experience that one. So like we go down the roots of a tree in a way, and you fall like water, you go down one root or another. Well, not water, actually, the whatever's inside the trees. You fall to different roots, depending on in a way what you need to learn in this lifetime, but also in a way depending on what you've prepared yourself to experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get what you're saying, and I was even thinking the other day. I was listening to Anthony Peake. I don't know if you know who Anthony Peake is.
Yeah, I actually would like to interview him, but I haven't been able to reach him yet.
Oh, you know what? I think he has a new book out, so it'd probably be a good time to get hold of him. But he has some really interesting ideas about this. And I was listening to an interview with him, and it kind of hit me. The concept of time, we think of time as fundamental, but if we think of time as an epiphenomenon of things, then everything, it's not that everything is almost happening at the same time, but there's that word again, but we need time to put it into a narrative, to follow it, to break it up. You know, it's part of that. We exist in a dualistic world, and we have to accept that. And time's part of that. But like you said, it's all there. And even when you get into physics, there's some ideas about time that are, most formulas in physics can go both ways. You know, there really is the arrow of time is kind of vague a little bit in physics, especially when you get to the subatomic level.
Yeah, or when you get to the super light speeds, actually. Like if you know, like that experiment, if you were sitting on a beam of light, how you would experience the outside world is insane. Yeah, I've had glimpses of and realizations and the idea that I've reached is that the infinite and it's like it wraps around itself. So everything is in a point, in a way. So infinity is actually just a point. I'm still struggling to find the words to describe the idea, but that could fit in what you were saying.
In Jung talks about this a little bit as it's almost like God exploring himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that fits exactly what he is the infinite. If you think of the God as the infinite, it bends to try and see itself. But it's just, you know, that concept, it's kind of hard to capture. Joseph Campbell talks a lot about that. Mm-hmm. That idea of the infinite condescending, that condescension of the infinite to the moment. And that's what we experience as the eternal, no?
Mm. Well, and it kind of ties into the sculpture that I mentioned in Punta del Este, where you almost went, that it's like the fingers, they seem like something separate from each other, but in fact, it's all part of a hand, which is part of an arm, part of a body, and part of a single entity or single existence. And I follow very much the Hindu philosophy, Vedic philosophy, and yeah, that's basically what they're saying, and it makes total sense to me.
Sure. Advaita, I'm pretty interested in that too.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done DMT?
Allegedly, yes, but who knows the truth?
Ah, right.
Look, here I have a picture of the thing.
Oh, wow. And that's somebody built that, somebody made that.
Yeah. No, it's a real giant. That's in the.
Oh, he's underground.
Yeah. You were asking about a particular substance.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, I was just wondering if because the experience that people have, especially I think more with that substance than say the ayahuasca, is it absolutely sends you to a different dimension.
Mm.
And you do, and two aspects of it that are interesting is one, it does seem more real. I think it's almost like you wake up from this existence to another reality. And I wouldn't say time doesn't necessarily, I wouldn't say it doesn't exist there, but it definitely has a different flavor.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like it's been described as something that's. I mean, in this world, you'll be there like for 10 minutes, something like that. But over there, time can feel very different. It can feel like a few seconds or perhaps a very long time.
It's extraordinary.
Mm.
It really is extraordinary experience.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful because you lose the fear of death.
Mm.
When you come back, it's just like, I don't want to come back. Let me stay.
Did you have?
No, it really is a wonderful experience that way.
Mm.
That's what I think the great thing about hallucinogens is they can give you that taste.
Yeah, like a reminder of
Yeah,
what you need to be doing or something like that.
you know.
Mm.
So you want to do? I have my cards. So if you want to do a reading, we can. You let me know when.
Yeah, it would be great. So as we were speaking before, maybe we could tease out the question.
Exactly. I think it's important. I think we agree. What we're kind of looking is like what really is the issue here, and what is really happening. Because I think you and I would both agree that this is more than just a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is not just, you know, a health issue. There's a lot more going on. You can just feel it.
Mm-hmm.
In the article I just wrote, when this began, I was pretty early on this. And I just made a Twitter list. You know, on Twitter, you can make a list. I made a list of all of the most important epidemiologists and all this stuff. And I just remember going in thinking I'm going to get science. Oh, I'm going to get the science. And I started getting all kinds of stuff that I shouldn't be getting from virologists and epidemiologists. You know, I started thinking, wow, this is strange. Why am I not, convinced? Because I work with, my wife's a bacteriologist, publishes in important journals and everything. So I'm used to talking. And usually they talk, it's very kind of dry. It's very mechanical. But here we're getting a lot more than just science.
Yes.
So what is it? There's something going on.
It's a very strange situation. Let me see. I had an idea for the. Here we go. I got it right here next to me. I don't know. We could find a. You guide me. I mean, I can give you an idea of what I was thinking.
Let's do it this way. How about you ask the question and I'll do the. So usually when I do a reading, it's this way. I let them kind of find the question that clicks with them. If it clicks with, and when I can feel it click, then I go, okay, we'll do it.
All right. Yeah. So what I wrote down is, what do we need to know about the current situation in order to thrive during the coming months or the rest of the year?
I like that question.
Mm-hmm.
I usually shy away from kind of open questions, but in this situation, I think it's perfect. Because it's not too, like sometimes if someone comes with a health question, I don't want to, what will happen to my health in the next 6 months? I won't do a question like that because, right. But in this situation, yeah, I think that's perfect. I like it. Yeah,
I wanted it to be kind of general in the sense that anybody listening to this could be could gain something from the answer, from the reading.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So what I usually do is I'm just going to shuffle. We can kind of talk a little bit about this. And well, what are your ideas? What do you think this is taking us?
Well, in part, I'm seeing like I told you of the what happened after 9/11 of a great awakening, and in this case, like you said, this is even greater than what happened during that time. So I'm seeing this as being an opportunity for an even greater awakening. I've seen right before this happened, I was I was seeing something that I named the mystic revival. So I
Mm-hmm.
was seeing a very important rise in, for example, many tarot readers started appearing, many astrologers, lots of people interested in learning how to read, um, and even before, lots of people started getting into spirituality more than they had in the past. I don't know, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation, yoga, um, perhaps even ancient um, ancient holistic, no, what's the name, like Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, ancient health health systems, let's say,
Sure.
or ancient medicines. People getting into into magic,
Yeah.
and even perhaps we could say the psychedelics that's been reviving as well. It's like all of the paranormal and spiritual aspects of life have been on the rise, from all that to even the election of Donald Trump. It was kind of
Mm-hmm.
a magic moment, or a trickster moment. It's
A trickster moment, I think, is, yeah, it really was a trickster moment.
like something is intruding into our previous just 3D reality. Something has been like racing the world in a way, is what I think. And this event is like a very big divider also. Like there's some people who will be all official narrative, extreme to the extreme, and other people will be like immediately, this, there's something wrong going on here. And so I think it's a moment that's taking people within, those who are ready, and like separating those who are ready from those who aren't, in a way.
And it is really interesting if you and you hate to divide people, but you can see a divide into two very dogmatic camps. One is sort of the basic mainstream official version, and then the other one, it's a hoax, it's Bill Gates, it's this and that. And I think there's a danger in falling into either one of those. You know, you have to kind of back up and just take a look at what's happening between these two sides, because it's important that we have these two. Like we were talking about duality, you're always going to have them. But if you want to get the real picture, you got to back up out of that. The dogmatic, that dogmatic, oh, it's a hoax, it's Bill Gates, it's the, you know, the UN or whatever. They're in the mainstream one. I think it's dangerous to fall into that trap, because it's easy to fall into it.
And because duality, I'm thinking now, it doesn't just have two sides, but it always has the both and. It's got always implicit a kind of third option, a middle way, like the Buddha said. So yeah, all in any aspect of, from something very personal to something very general, falling to one side or the other, most likely that's not where you're gonna find the final answer, I think.
Right. And if we looked at this in just the most simple duality of night and day, the mainstream version of, oh, we have to, you know, that's the sun, it's the masculine. And the virus itself is the chaotic feminine, the night. You know what I mean? And it's those two kind of coming together. And something weird is definitely happening. It's definitely happening. We'll see. So I like your question. I like your question a lot. So are you ready to do the spread?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you see how I'm shuffling the card? Can you see? Oh, yeah, I'm shuffling the cards. What I want you to do is just really focus just for a minute, and then you tell me when I should stop. All right.
Right. Okay, let's do it.
Good. Excellent. So as a significator, I'll use you, okay?
Sure.
Oh, by the way, what sign are you?
I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, you're Aquarius. Yeah. So I'm just going to take the first king, okay?
I'm Aquarius Sun, Capricorn Rising, Scorpio Moon.
Oh my God, you're a mess. She's like, yes, he is. Hey, how you doing?
Being pulled in several directions.
So we got the King of Swords, okay?
Yeah.
Swords being air. So it's important to keep that in mind, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the deck down and we'll cut the deck. So I'm just going to raise my fingers from the bottom and you tell me when to stop, okay? Hold on one second. Let me just move this over here. Okay, so I'm going to start lifting my fingers from the bottom of the deck. You tell me when to stop. This is just to cut the deck.
Okay.
There we go. Excellent. So I like these type of questions. They're interesting because, for example, when we put the first card, what covers you, it's not necessarily you, it's what covers all of us. So it's interesting what this kind of focuses the question. What really is the question? No? Interesting. The Queen of Wands. Interesting that the question would be the Queen of Wands. Wands is fire, right? As intuition. You know, I really don't know what that means.
Can I say what comes to my mind?
Yeah, definitely.
That perhaps there is a certain intuition present in the question. So like the question might be tapping into something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, that it's almost a reinforcement of the significator. In a sense, the King of Swords as the idea, and then you have the sort of the inspiration, the idea. Because I don't think it's a person. I really don't think it's a person. But, you know, on the other hand, you just wonder, when you think of a virus, I think of it, for some reason, I think of it as feminine. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it has a kind of androgynous quality in that idea that they say that it goes to a kind of a lock, and with its protrusions, it gets into a lock. So yeah, it's a
oh, you know, and we forgot one thing. You know, the Queen has a crown, and the coronavirus.
Both, we got king and queen.
Right, and but just remember, the significator is always a king. So if I do a man, it's a king. If I do
right.
Say if it's a younger guy, we'll do a knight, younger girl, a page. But this card, what's covering it is kind of interesting. Look at, see how she has the sunflower and the crown? It does kind of remind you of this. It's almost like it's about her. Interesting. So what's crossing her? And this is kind of interesting. If she is the virus itself, what's crossing her, it's almost what's provoking her. This is strange. Six of Pentacles. Now this card is a really good card. It's generosity. I mean, this is an excellent card. The only thing is, and this is always one thing I've always kind of wondered about this card, she's getting, you see how she's getting the money and the other guy isn't? I always wonder, is the other guy going to get some money? You assume so now. When you do a reading about a situation, this card is, the sixes are always good. No? It's a positive reading, but still. It's kind of curious beginning. So what about the origins? What's below us? Another queen. The Queen of Pentacles. What's above us? The Seven of Pentacles. What's beside us? The Queen of Swords. Interesting. So are you following this?
I don't think I got the last one.
So it's what's above us. What's above us? The Seven of Pentacles. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's beside us? The Queen of Swords. Now what's coming? The Ace of Wands. So this is the cross. It's almost like the virus is here, and for some bizarre reason, it's giving us something.
Mm.
I wonder if this, what's crossing it, the provocation, something financial. What's below us? Another queen. And what's above us is the Seven, right? This card is usually work well done. Interesting, all Pentacles.
Mm.
So what's crossing us, Pentacles? What's below Pentacles? What's above Pentacles? It almost seems like this somehow is about money.
It's weird. It reminds me again of 9/11 and the connection with oil.
Yeah, it's very strange. What's behind this is a queen. Now, this is interesting because the woman who runs the lab in Wuhan, they call her Batwoman. She's a scientist, right? Which would fit, that would be the Queen of Swords, somebody who's very intellectual. It's almost like it comes from her. Because generally when I do readings, the court cards are people, generally.
Mm.
It's a very specific reading. It's interesting. Okay, let's just do the staff. So the bottom of the staff is how you relate to this situation, which would be how do we relate to this situation? And the Three of Wands is an interesting card, no? Because you see the ships are in the horizon. They're coming. It's almost there. There's a lot of potential here. Which is interesting, potential in this. How does the other see us? As the Magician. It's almost like the virus sees us as a magician. We see in this situation, we see enormous potential, and it sees magic. Now this card would be interesting because this is the advice card or the overlooked factor. Fighting. And the final outcome. Interesting. Interesting to get when you get a major arcana in the final position. Balance. Jesus, you know what? When I read this now, at first it kind of threw me off. But for me, it's almost really clear that there's a real financial thing in this. All these pentacles. And there's real potential to find a better balance, because I think we all admit the world was completely out of whack before this in every aspect. And that we'll find that, because the Temperance card is a beautiful card. I mean, it has many levels. No? in art, it's reaching that balance, no? That aesthetic equality. Mentally, it can even be your own personal temperance, no? Not going to extremes. Interesting.
Yes, this is a very, very interesting spread for this situation.
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about the cards. Sometimes they really throw you for a loop sometimes. You're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of see it and you're like, wow. But it does seem like there is definitely something financial in this. And there'll be a reordering of debt. You know, some economists are even now, I've read, talking about debt jubilees, that sort of thing. Remember, in the month of April, maybe 40% of mortgage payments and rent payments in the United States won't be made. 40%. You know, that throws a wrench in the entire financial system. So who knows?
I'm kind of speechless, but at the same time, it kind of intuitively made a lot of sense. You know,
Yeah.
how there's not just because we could look at that economic part as certain economic interests behind the potential release of this, but also economic transformation for the people, for all of us who are going through this. Like you were saying, the balancing out of the economy, and at the end we have temperance again. So reiterating the idea of balance. And for me, the magician in a way kind of talks about balance too.
Yeah. But in more of transformation, though,
Mm-hmm.
the magician, it's more
movement, right?
Yeah. It's, you know, it's interesting too. I did a podcast with on Forum Borealis a couple of weeks ago, and all we talked about was the financial part of this. And one of the main topics we were talking about is who's going to pay for this. So, for example, the U.S. government created, I think that they printed about $7 trillion in a couple of weeks. And the big question was, nobody asked, how are we going to pay for this? And, you know, the answer is nobody is going to pay for it. We're just going to print it. And if you look at modern monetary theory, it says it really doesn't matter. You can print as much money as you want. What you can't create are resources. You know, you can't create respirators, but you can print money to build respirators. As long as the factory's not at capacity, you can print money until the factory gets to capacity. It's not going to cause inflation. And it was a little bit about how this money, you can actually print money. What you can't do is print oranges.
Kind of like we have a cheat code for money in all of that, in the fact that there's no backup for the printing. As long as there is human belief in the currency, we can just print it. So in a way, the debt, you know, that there could be some transformation in that. I personally was for some time thinking, oh wow, how can money change? So there's these cryptocurrencies, but I don't see the old monetary system necessarily one day disappearing and suddenly it's crypto. But maybe when everybody understands, or when the general public understands the illusory nature of money, maybe we can not abolish it, but start using it differently.
Yeah.
Like accepting that it's an illusion. So, okay, let's just print, and we need this. Okay, let's do it.
And there is a way to look at money that it's a promise of future work. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. So when you go to a bank and you get a mortgage, the money is created, they give it to you, You buy your house and you sign a piece of paper saying, I will work for 20 years and pay it back. So all money is sort of a promise of future work. But we could create a system where, for example, I paint your house and you create money and pay me. And as long as I really do paint your house and enough people confirm in a blockchain that, yes, Robert did paint his house, you can create the money and pay me. You see what I mean? And for things that are created, you can create money. But what you can't do is create money to buy something that already exists. If I go to you and say, I want to buy your car, you can't create money to do that. Then you'd have to use the money that you gave me to paint the house. I use that money to buy a car. Mm. But when things are created, you can create money. So when a mother gives birth to a child, you can say, you've created something incredible. Here's X amount of money. And then every year, here's more to raise the child. And you see what I mean? Because she's creating something.
Mm. So
if we change that mentality, you know, it's
a kind of reimbursement for your creativity. So it could be great for art and for innovation.
But even for science, for machines, computers. Somebody creates a computer, great. You know what I mean? Anything we do that's creative, write a song, make a hamburger, whatever it is, you know. But when we buy existing assets, then you only can use the money that you've earned creating something.
Sort of like novelty credits, something like that.
Exactly. But within a blockchain so that it's confirmed, because people can say but if you say, yeah, Robert did paint my house and he's painted 10 other houses and people confirm it, then that creation can happen.
Mm. You know? So if you had to sort of round up the spread that we just experienced, what could you say as a general description of what's the message there?
What it's saying to me, it's kind of strange, but it seemed very financial in because I kept getting, I mean, we got what it seemed like was the virus itself crossed by this money thing. Below it, the Queen of Pentacles, and above it, the Seven of Pentacles. And above it, what it's saying is, in the final analysis, we're going to look back in this as work well done. And something behind this of a Queen of Swords. I don't know who this is, but it looks like the impulse behind this was maybe a woman with an idea. And it's interesting. What's coming soon is the Ace of Pentacles. I mean, the Ace of Pentacles, the Ace of Wands, which is a true inspiration. It's like something clicks. No, it's fire. And then we get this idea of potential, the Magician, but there will be fighting. This will not be an easy transition, but it looks like, I mean, can you ask for a better final card? You know, I like to think of Temperance, if you think of the three levels of sort of the material, the psychic, and the spiritual, she's the last card. She's the anchor of the psychic level. It's when you've completely dominated the psychic level, you have that Temperance in your soul, no? And then the final 7 cards are the spirit. This is a beautiful card. So it almost seems like we will find something good at the end of this.
Looks like it. That was a great reading. Thank you very much for agreeing to do it.
Sure, I enjoyed it.
Even though it's in a way not confusing, but in a way it's kind of cryptic, it's also elucidating or illuminating as well.
Yeah, very much. And it doesn't surprise me that much because I have spent a lot of time discussing and talking about the financial side of things. So it's a topic I've been interested in for a while. So it is interesting.
Well, Robert, um, please let us know where people can find you. Tell us about your website and perhaps any social media that you would like to share.
Sure. You can find me on, so my website is thecactusland.com. And there's a new article up today. I just published an article on the coronavirus in the context of the film Clockwork Orange. My film on the tarot is the 21 Faces of God. Just go to YouTube, put the 21 Faces of God. It's free. So you can see the long form version, or I broke it into 27 parts. You can watch it in parts, however you like. And if somebody was interested in a tarot reading, on my website, The Cactus Land, I have my email. You can just send me an email, and we can work something out.
Yeah, this really has been a great conversation. I would love to have you back again sometime
Great.
soon. There's probably a lot more that we could talk about. We went very surface level on a few things before the reading, and yeah, you're a really cool guy. Well, I really
Thanks a lot.
yeah, sure. I really like this opportunity, and I thank you very much for your time. Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll stay in touch.
Definitely. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.